I didn't think that it could happen to me.
Knowledge is power.
If you don't do it, it's 100 times worse.
I kept pushing my mammogram. I just told myself that something is really wrong.
About 1 in 3 women will be diagnosed with cancer in her lifetime. 1 in 3. But early detection can mean the difference between a life cut short and a life fully lived. Screenings catch cancer when it's most treatable. They save mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends every single day. Behind every statistic are real women, each with her own story.
The way that I found out something was wrong was I was just unexplainably very tired. I'll wake up in the morning and feel like I hadn't gotten any rest at all.
I went for a regular mammo. I had just moved from Canada to the US at that time. There, normally they did it every other year, the screening. But my new doctor said the protocol here in the US is to do it every year. Lo and behold, in April of 2006, they saw something that they didn't like in my mammogram.
I knew something was wrong. I could just feel it. And I had gone to the doctor a few times, largely due to fatigue. I was just exhausted. And it was more than just, oh, I'm tired, I'll take a nap and I'll feel better. It was, I would wake up and need to go right back to bed. I just couldn't keep my eyes open. So it was just really bad fatigue, feeling generally unwell.
Pushing my mammogram. So the first thing that occurred to me with that was to call and make an appointment for a mammogram. Normally it would take maybe a few weeks or so, and I called them up that morning, and they told me that they had a spot open in the afternoon. They could see me in the afternoon, so I went in that afternoon and got a mammogram. And I had cancer. I couldn't believe it. I was just in disbelief. I couldn't believe it. I had little kids. My kids were like 5, 4. I really can't put it in words.
It was breast cancer, stage 2B. It was diagnosed on my yearly mammogram.
I went to the doctor and did several different tests. It actually took like 6 months to get my diagnosis and a lot of different testing because the type of cancer that I have is most often diagnosed in older white men. So the average age of diagnosis is 72. And I was 39 at the time with small children. So it wasn't on the horizon of things that it could be. It took a little bit of time, but finally got there. I ended up having a lymph node removed surgically so that they could look at it and run pathology on that. I definitely look at my life in 2 segments, and it's kind of before cancer, BC, and after cancer. And they are definitely different. They had said, your type is very aggressive. The average lifespan at that time was 7 years. And knowing that mine was aggressive, I thought, okay, that was an expiration date that I felt like was stamped across my forehead.
So I had surgery for them to remove the cancer. They said they got it all, and then I had radiation. Because of the nature of the cancer, I had to have, it was a stronger dose of radiation over 11 weeks. I was always tired. I couldn't stand up for more than 5 minutes.
They found a lump in the left breast, and it was diagnosed as what they call adenosarcoma, which is cancer. Very early stages, less than a centimeter. The surgeon's recommendation was a lumpectomy, which is they remove the lump with enough tissue around it. and followed by 7 weeks of radiation. It didn't seem so bad at the time because there was no radical surgery or chemotherapy. And at that diagnosis, we did not know. I don't even think the doctors knew about the gene called the BRCA gene, which is the BRCA gene.
I was about 29 years old, and my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. After she was diagnosed, we started to think, well, maybe there's a family history. And so he said, well, there's this genetic test called BRCA, BRCA. Would you like to take the test? And at the time I thought, well, okay, I can just take the test. No big deal. I'm going to be negative. That's fine. I'll just take the test. So I took the test and forgot about it and completely forgot about, the test. 3 weeks later, he called me and he said, Sasha, your BRCA test has come back positive.
It wasn't yet common to screen women for this BRCA gene, which is the gene that I carry. And at this point, I want to tell you that I didn't realize, or I wasn't aware of the fact, because when you're in good health, you don't think of your family history and who had what. But I had 2 aunts, my father's sisters, both with breast cancer, and they were diagnosed so late that they died of it. One was in her late 60s, one was in her early 70s. Today, I'm still alive at 74. So, again, there you go. Early diagnosis, proper treatment, your survival chances are very good. 9 years later, routine mammogram, a lump shows up in the right breast this time. I was a bit surprised because I thought I was done with it. And of course, I went and had the test, the genetic test, this time at Mercy Medical Hospital Center in Baltimore, is where I went for my treatment. And they test you for the gene. I tested positive, and so did my daughter. And not only was the decision made between all of us to have a double mastectomy to prevent the hormones from affecting any future recurrence, it was also decided to do what they call a radical hysterectomy, where they remove all your organs, your uterus, your fallopian tubes, your ovaries, your cervix, everything. So it was an 8.5-hour surgery, remove both breasts, a radical mastectomy, what they call. After that, of course, we had already talked about it earlier. They just don't do the surgery and let you go. It's followed by chemotherapy. So I discussed with Dr. David Weisberg, and he recommended, he said it's a very early cancer, but given that you carry the BRCA gene, given that this has happened the second time, we shall do what we call adjuvant chemotherapy. Adjuvant chemotherapy is slightly different. It's a chemotherapy they give you as a precaution.
My relatives were not supportive. They, in fact, called me and said, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You don't have cancer. Why are you removing breast tissue? Why are you removing, parts of your body? You don't already have cancer. You should definitely go for the preventative measures versus waiting for the cancer to come and affect your life. And then not only do you have to go through the surgeries, you then have to go through chemo and radiation, and potentially your cancer could have spread to other organs, and you could be in a stage 2 or a stage 3. It's always best to do preventative measures if you can.
So it's absolutely essential that you have your annual mammogram every single year, because a lot can happen in a year, as it did in my case. But the blessing was that it was very, very early. If you don't do it, it's 100 times worse. So it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable, very little. No more than having a big needle, you know. So please don't be influenced by what anybody tells you. Just go ahead and get it done every single year. Your pap smear and your mammogram. These are the two things women should do.
I will say this in terms of screening, I think, at age 40, really women should begin their screenings for mammograms. And if you have a family history, such as I do, you really should be starting to have your mammograms at younger than 40, 35. So it's good to be in tune with what is your family history. If they live in another country, try to talk and find out. Information is very valuable.
I found out fairly quickly after I was diagnosed that my type of CLL was unlikely to respond to any of the current treatments available at that time. So I found a clinical trial that was being offered in Ohio or Germany. And those were my options because otherwise there was really nothing and it's incurable. So I went to Ohio for 2 years. The treatment was very, very effective, but it was also very difficult. It was 2 years in length, just the treatment. And then it took a couple of years for me to get back to healthy functioning, like at a normal level. Being a woman who is younger than most of the people in the trial, they did not account for certain things, like the fact that I had not gone through menopause. One of the medicines really increases the likelihood of bleeding. And so when I would get my cycle, it became extremely problematic. And that was something that the doctors really had not considered. I had some bleeding issues and had to have, I hemorrhaged and I had to have like an emergency procedure to stop the bleeding. And then I also had sepsis twice. So it was very much in and out of the hospital for the 2 years of my treatment. But I like to think that I helped them learn because now I was kind of the guinea pig and they thought, oh, well, we need to address that going forward when we use these types of medicines.
I did 5 months of 3 different types of chemo, and then I had THOF, and then I had a double mastectomy, and then after the double mastectomy, I started a year of injectable treatments. And during that year of injectable treatments, I also started an oral therapy, which I'm still on. I'm to be on the oral therapy for 5 years, and I'm in year 4.
Through every step, from diagnosis to healing, none of them walked alone. Family, friends, doctors, and communities carried
Really,
them
the most
forward.
amazing thing that came out of this was the kindness of strangers. I met a woman in Ohio who started a foundation that supports patients traveling to Columbus, Ohio for treatment. And she and her husband paid for hotel stays so that I wouldn't have to drive 8 hours, get 8 hours of infusions, and then drive 8 hours home. So I was able to recover overnight before going home. And that organization is called Hope Hollow, but just strangers who walked into my fire and helped me. And we're still very, very close to this day. They're like family.
My husband was extremely supportive. He was there by my side every day. So it's so important if you can have family support. People brought meals. There was a meal train. People would come and just sit and chat. So many flowers were delivered. People brought, candy, cupcakes, and more than the gifts and of course the food was very appreciative because I couldn't cook at the time, but more than the items, it was the time that people came and spent with me to really talk to me and tell me that they thought it was a very brave decision that I made.
I am a pharmacist, so during the course of my work, I met a lady that had gone through breast cancer. Okay, so She was my patient, she eventually became my friend. So as soon as I was told that I had cancer, I picked up the phone. She's my patient. I found her phone, picked up the phone, and I called her. She showed up. Maybe something in my voice told her something was wrong. I told her what was going on, and she was the one that helped me through it. The surgeon that performed my surgery was the one that she recommended it. She drove me to the hospital. She stayed with me. And she was, even now, she's the person that is going to give me questions.
Most of my friends and family were so supportive. Even if it was just a text, it meant so much to me. I don't think we realize how much that power of reaching out to someone. There were people I hadn't been in touch with in years who said, "Hey, I hope I'm not overstepping, but I heard, and I just wanted to tell you I'm thinking about you." And it meant a lot to me that they were reaching out after so many years and didn't feel awkward about it. So if anyone is ever in that situation where you hear about someone's illness, I think maybe not everybody would feel the way that I did, but I really appreciated.
These women have turned their experiences into purpose, to speak up and to educate. Their message is clear. Don't wait, get checked, because knowledge can truly save a life.
I mean, cancer is not a death sentence. It can be, which is why we're all scared of it. Caught early is very, very true that early treatment, early diagnosis, early intervention can prolong your life. I am a healthcare provider, so I very much believe in all types of screening, whether it's mammogram, a yearly physical, getting all of your immunizations, seeing the dentist every 6 months. I'm very much a proactively healthy person, and I very much believe in preventative health. We don't eat any foods that have artificial dyes in them, nothing with corn syrup, nothing with MSG. When we go get a donut, we don't get the purple Ravens one because I never wanted them to have food coloring. So we've always been very careful about that, about everything: exercise, fitness, drinking water, being healthy, living in a healthful way. And so what that showed me is that it almost doesn't matter what you do, it can happen to anyone.
If you feel that something is wrong, get it checked out. Cancer can happen to anybody. And it's not just your neighbor or your friend or your sister. It can happen to you. It can happen to someone you found.
You need to take advantage of the opportunities to screen yourself. We all know that finding a diagnosis early in an early stage gives you the best chance for success. There are people, and I've encountered, and I have friends that are like, "Oh, I'd rather not know, I don't want to do it." No one wants to hear bad news, right? In any realm. But knowledge is power. So if you can take that bad news and act on it with treatment, then you're taking control. You're taking your life back. So take any type of surveillance or screening very seriously. That should be everyone's priority.
I was working in primary care while getting chemo, and I had a wig, but it was probably 90 degrees that day. I didn't wear the wig. I had a bandana on my head. My eyebrows were gone, my eyelashes were gone, and I had a patient who said, we were going through her health screening. She was 35 years old, or maybe she was 40, I don't remember, but she had never had a mammogram, and I encouraged her to do so. And she said, "I really don't want to have this conversation. I'm not interested. I don't believe in it. I believe that it's a scam by insurance companies and the healthcare programs, and I really don't believe in it." And I nodded my head because she has every right to do what she wants to do. But I said, I respect your opinion, and I'm not going to talk you into it. I'm going to try to talk you into it, but ultimately it's your decision. She was an African American patient, and African American women are at a higher risk than other ethnicities. And I told her all about my background and how I've always exercised and eaten a clean diet and get good sleep and dental appointments and all those things. And I said, I never thought it could be me. And it's me, and I have 2 children, and I have so much to live for. I said, look at me, I don't have any, I looked ghastly. I was sick, my skin was gray, and I said, if I could prevent you from ever having to go through this, having never met you before, it would be like my greatest honor. And I would really, really encourage you, don't put yourself through this because it's awful. And she nodded her head, and before she left, she said, I'm not going to hug you because I know you're immune compromised, but I'm going to go get my mammogram.
Fear is human, but knowledge is powerful. When we choose to know, to get screened, to ask questions, to care for ourselves, we choose life. So make that appointment. Hear the conversation. Tell someone you love to get checked.
Please get screened.
Please go get screened.
Please go get screened.
Please go get your screenings.
Please go get screened.